As Montreal begins a process of reopening, a coalition of the city's Indigenous groups say it is too early because the Indigenous homeless population remains at high risk of contracting COVID-19. Resilience Montreal is a shelter focused on helping the Indigenous community. They are operating in tents to try and maintain physical distancing while still providing support for those experiencing homelessness. Nakuset is a local Indigenous activist and a co-manager of Resilience Montreal. She's our guest this morning. Welcome to your morning.
Hi, thank you.
You first opened Resilience Montreal last November, and then COVID-19 hits a few months later. Shelters shut down right across the city, but you kept Resilience Montreal open. Explain to us some of the challenges that you faced.
Well, first of all, we had to go outside, which is not awesome. And it was really cold at the end of March. But the problem was that every service in Montreal serving the homelessness population was closed. So in order for us to help the people, and we're super dedicated in doing so, we had to go across the street, and Cabot Square is there. So what we did was we put out tables, we put out chairs, we continued to serve meals outside, and we had an extra table where we gave out underwear, socks, coats, blankets, just tents, everything that you could need in order to survive.
Yeah, and the challenges for communities that are experiencing homelessness is when you don't have a home to isolate in, when you don't have a washroom to be able to wash your hands, all the things we take for granted in keeping ourselves healthy and safe just weren't present. Resilience Montreal focuses specifically on Indigenous populations. Tell me what does that look like?
Well, I mean, the people that walk through our door are Indigenous and some aren't. But because Cabot Square has a large history of Indigenous people coming to that place, it was for them, which is why if you look at the logo for Resilience Montreal, you'll also see it written in Inuktitut and that there's like an Inukshuk on it. But what we wanted to do is try to help the people that came in that couldn't access services. So in Montreal, there's a lot of racial discrimination, systemic discrimination against Indigenous people, and they couldn't always access services. So what we tried to do was bring all the services into the building. All the community organizations would come and visit, and then they could receive those services, on a daily basis if they chose to do so.
A lot of the services that you're talking about rely on support from the province. You've worked with the Indigenous homeless population in Montreal for years. You are also the executive director at the Native Women's Shelter. Quebec's Premier François Legault is still insisting systemic racism does not exist in the province of Quebec. What's your response?
That's really difficult because, I still work at the Native Women's Shelter, by the way. That's my real job. Resilience is my other job. But I mean, I was part of the Viens Commission. I went and testified for about 4 days. And that report was released in September. And there's about 140 different recommendations that have not been implemented. And this is actually why we have resilience, because if they can't go to, a hospital without getting kicked out, or to rehab without getting kicked out, or being able to get welfare or an apartment, at least we can have those services in the building, and that way they can start working on applications and have that full support, because we're waiting for Quebec to wake up and to address systemic racism and to make the changes that are in writing. And I'm really hoping that at some point someone's going to pick up the document and say, hey, we should probably apply this.
Nakuset, you are doing an incredible work in the city of Montreal on two fronts. I want to thank you for taking time to join us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.